Consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
It's the end of the pod as we know it. Did you know I planned that?
No. I love it.
Last dish.
Last episode.
Wild.
Wild, wild, wild.
How are you feeling about it?
Good. Sometimes a little sentimental, but I mean, the episodes kind of come together piecemeal, little parts by little parts. So there's kind of no, oh, this is the last thing. I guess this is the last thing, or when I edit and upload the last one. But yeah, for the most part, I feel fine.
And I feel fine.
I feel fine.
No, I feel the same. I feel like a little bit sentimental and nostalgic, but mostly good.
Yeah. Mostly affirmed that this is the right time and whatnot. I mean, it's been a heck of a run.
8 years of episodes.
Honestly, like
all told, with all of the special episodes, over 200.
Over 200, yep. And every single one released on time. Never did we take time off, and never did we release an episode late. I am proud of that.
People have been asking me, like, why don't y'all just take a break? I'm like, that's not how our model is. Like, we can't just take a break.
Yes, people, I don't know if it's like what it is. People really want us to leave the door open. And it's like, I never say never, but also I don't want to give false hope, and not everything has to last forever. And we are concluding this project. Come to terms with it. Actually, our Christa, at our final interview, she was kind of asking us some questions afterwards. And I remember saying something I didn't realize how true it was until I said it, which was, she was asking if we'll continue to collaborate and do things together. And of course, the answer is yes. But I said more so what I am looking forward to is being an audience member in the things that you do. You know what I mean? Like, I will always be partners and we'll always do things together, but I'm also looking forward to just being your best friend and being able to watch and applaud you and be a bystander for some of it and not be so integrally involved in all of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, totally. Yeah, it's and I feel exactly the same way about you and your career. I don't know, it just feels like a thing that we have done and we have made the absolute most of, and now we've sort of, I don't know, that phase of life feels like it's coming to a close. I don't want to say that we've outgrown it, but it does feel a little like we have changed over the last 8 years. Our
Mm-hmm.
perspectives have changed. Um, our goals have changed. Our lives have changed
Mm-hmm.
drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started this, you were living in Missouri
Mm-hmm.
and I
We were
was
in
living in
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it feels like, you know, closing the door on something in order to open the door to something else.
Yes, and it also feels like we can end on a high note. Like we
Mhm.
can end while we still have a passionate listenership. And by the way, to those of you who've reached out to us over the past since the announcement and said that, thank you or we're special to you or that you appreciate us, like thank you so much for reaching out with all that.
Mhm.
You and I like I think it's just a cool example. Like we started a business
Mhm.
together, and it was amazing for 8 years, and we are ending stronger friends than
Mhm.
ever,
Mhm.
having concluded, you know what I mean? Like it didn't fall apart. It didn't lose interest. We weren't inconsistent with it. It's like, we accomplished what we want to and we maintained our relationship and we learned so much. And now it's okay to conclude, be so, so proud
Mhm.
but yeah, move on.
Mhm. Yeah, 1000%. And I'm so proud of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you and I are great,
We're
better
talking
than
more than
great.
ever. Like that's
The
we're
voice
sending like
memos have
15
gotten
minute voice
longer.
memos, yes, like several times a day. And maybe that's why I'm not sad,
Yeah,
is because the
totally.
only thing I would potentially miss is the time with you.
Yeah, totally.
And it's more like this has become an interloper in my
Yeah,
time with you
yeah,
rather than, yeah, something that is necessary to tether us together.
1000%. Yeah,
It's like, oh, yeah, I guess we have to record the dish, so we'll stop like gossiping and catching up.
right.
But it's like, no, I just want to
No,
keep
I want to
talking
gossip.
with my friend. Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, like fine, but and so, yeah, it's time, and it's been such an amazing run. Like I think about everything that we learned. Like I was thinking earlier today, I was like, oh my gosh, we learned like what an LLC is, and we opened up a bank account in our LLC's name and we jointly filed taxes. Like I think it's just really cool that people have like been that we've done it, but also that
Mhm.
we're an example to the rest of the double read community who might say like, "Oh, I can't do that," or "I don't have the skills for that. No one taught me." And it's like, well, you literally watched us teach ourselves.
Mhm.
It's
We went to Google University
yeah, none of it is that hard. Like
with a graduate degree from YouTube.
exactly. Yeah. Like with the consortium, we hired a lawyer and paid for lawyers' time by the hour to make sure
Mhm.
we were doing those contracts correctly. Like we gained a lot of skills through it all, and it's been so cool.
Mhm.
And yeah, now 8 years later, it's time for a break.
Mhm.
I'm ready for, I don't know, just kind of, we talked about discussing what we're looking forward to going forward. And I'm in kind of a unique place because I will, in May, submit my tenure materials. And
Amazing.
assuming everything goes well, we'll enter kind of a new phase professionally.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about next year is at WSU, it has been communicated to me that in the year after you submit, but before you have actually been granted tenure, you're really not advised to do much professionally because
Yeah.
it can neither go in your tenure portfolio nor in your portfolio for full professor.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel like the universe is giving me a year to like slow down.
Which you need, and also you're probably not going to.
Well, I plan to, it will be my first year of president as IDRS, which I
Uh-huh.
really want to do a good job at and give myself to and learn what type of president I want to be and all the skills that I need to do. But I am also, yes, I'm ready to slow down a bit. It has been a sprint for a
Mm.
while.
For you've been sprinting for a long time.
And I am looking forward to having less on my plate. It has been too much for quite a while. And I'm also looking forward to post tenure approaching my career differently. I think I will be composing more. I think I'll be collaborating in different ways. I don't see it being so, I don't see myself being motivated by the same things that I was motivated by.
That is such a good way to put it. I feel exactly the same way.
Yes.
Like us from 8 years ago versus us today, our motivations and our goals are completely different.
Yes. And so I'm really looking forward to leaning into that and just thinking about like, what do I want to do? Not what do I feel I need to do? What do I want to create? What do I want to play? How do I want to show up as an artist, as a member of my community? All those type of things. And so I'm really looking forward to that freedom and growing in those ways. But that will necessitate and does necessitate drawing to some things to conclusion and putting them off to the side and letting them become, a wonderful memory. And Doublery Dish will always be like such a wonderful memory. So what are you, as we kind of put this off to the side, not that it's the most gigantic time suck, but as we have this not on our plate anymore, what are you kind of hoping to put onto your plate?
I am, as the listeners know, I've been working on this gearing project, and I am really looking forward to digging into that a lot more. I have a commissioning project that I've been working on for a long time that I have, I would like to pick back up again. I have a lot of hiking to do out here. I have a lot of quality time to make up for with my wife and my dogs. I'm on like a little bit of a reduced timeline to tenure, so I'll be working toward that. I have some ideas about my own oboe pedagogy and ways to streamline and specify a lot of things that I've been thinking about, and I just kind of need the time and space to do it.
Yeah. I think when people ask like, oh, couldn't you keep it going? It's like, well, yes, of course we could, but you can only do so many things at one time. And I think we're both just looking forward to like new, different projects.
Putting our energy into something different.
And we don't even know what they are yet, but we need that space to kind of figure it out.
Yeah. I am not one who thrives with time pressure.
Yeah.
I like to have a lot of open space. You and I have talked about this many times before, how I like to have wide open days where I can just float from one thing to another thing and just kind of immerse myself in tasks without like time pressure. That's when I do my best learning. I always have. Like I've always done my best learning in the summertime. Even as a student. And it just feels like a release of obligations to the podcast and freeing up of that time and responsibility so that I can focus it somewhere else.
Yeah. And I'm someone who has always done well with timeline and a lot of tasks. And I feel like for a lot of the past several years, that has translated into a need to be attempting to do everything and, put a lot of things on my plate. And similarly, I'm looking forward to slowing down and, seeing what calls my attention and what I choose to pursue when I have that freedom to not have it, just be frantically looking at the next box that needs to get checked. So it's really good. Yeah.
I think once I say it out loud, I think what I'm most looking forward to is having time and space to consider my creative output.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I don't know. Now I found myself getting a little emotional or sentimental. But these episodes will always be available.
Mm-hmm.
If I have, speaking of learning new things as they come up, I have never transferred an RSS feed from one platform to another, but I believe I've done it successfully. Part of why I believe I've done it successfully is our updated logo finally updated on Apple
Are you
Podcasts
serious?
after years. I was like, is this all it took? Yeah, it's the updated logo on Apple Podcasts now. I was like, are you kidding me? So, right?
It looks good.
So I'm fairly certain if on, I believe it's January 6th, our contract expires with our current host. If on January 7th, you cannot see Double Read Dish on Apple Podcasts, get in touch. I'll try to figure it out. But I think I've done it right. And regardless, we will always be on YouTube. And if you're like, Jackie, you all are way behind on YouTube, I'm going to get caught up there too. I have a winter break coming up and we're going to get that updated. And so you should be able to still access us wherever you access us currently. It's just new episodes will not be populating your feed, but you still have access to do all of that. The website will be going away.
Because we can't pay for that right now.
No, we can't be paying for that.
Sorry.
No.
I got mouths to feed. They need kibble.
And our email addresses will not go away, but we're going to put up away messages that basically say contact us here, not here, because we won't be checking those regularly anymore. So you can still get a hold. Our social media is not going away. And actually, we have a nice little last post, kind of funny video. So be on the lookout for that.
I screamed. I can't wait for you guys to see this. Jackie really outdid herself this time.
The grand finale, I had to.
Hey, oboists. Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes F. Fleuret of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 toward shipping, mention Double Read Dish when you call or email Shauna.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Read Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH, all caps, no spaces. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at chemicalcityreeds.com. We are delighted to welcome to Double Read Dish friend of the podcast, Christa Garvey, professor of oboe at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Welcome, Christa.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be with both of you.
Can we start by getting to know you a little bit by hearing how you came to play the oboe?
Oh, I've got a great story for that. I usually tell the parents of beginning oboe players this. It makes them feel a little more comfortable with their child's choice. So I had no idea what the oboe was when I just knew I didn't want to play flute or saxophone or something. And so my dad said, why don't you play oboe? Because my parents like to go to the symphony and things like that. I had no idea what an oboe was. So we got an oboe the first day. It was so exciting because we'd also just moved into a new house for us. And this was big deal. New house, new oboe. Opened up the case. I have no idea how to put it together, but somehow I managed to put the parts in the right place. I start playing, and my dad is yelling from the bottom of the stairs, "Get out of the house! The fire alarm is going off." Except it was me.
Oh, no.
So then he kind of was pale, and he's like, "That was you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so that was the beginning. It's a very beautiful beginning to oboe, right? It's to be, confused with the fire alarm. So, I'd like to think that things got better after that. So that was the first beginnings of the oboe. I didn't know what it was, and I started playing it, and I didn't know what I was supposed to sound like. So I guess I imitated a fire alarm.
At least it wasn't an ambulance,
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yes.
So, did you have a moment where you said, "Oh my goodness, I need to be a professional musician," or was it just something that kind of crept up on you over time?
I remember like teaching some oboe lessons to kids. Like once I got my driver's license, like life was so cool. And I would go and I would drive to these kids' homes, like latchkey kids, and I would give them lessons. And I found like this thing like years later, I guess it was like a sophomore in high school where it was like in an English class, writing down, what is it you want to do with your life? And I had said, I want to teach oboe. And I said, it doesn't need to be a huge place, but I want to teach oboe for the rest of my life. And I came back to that and was like, oh, wow, I guess I knew for a while that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. So there you go.
So can you talk us through like your training and educational path?
Sure. Well, you mean
And
since
sorry to talk in your backswing, but knowing that you wanted to teach specifically, if that informed your kind of decision-making process of where to apply and what programs you chose, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's a good question because I think I wrote that I wanted to be a teacher, but of course, as a young player, I just wanted to play. And so then I think for much of my early sort of mid-college work was all just to be playing. So like when I was in high school, I started studying with Mark Lifshie. I grew up in Indiana, and so I could drive like 2 or 3 hours and go have lessons with him, really not knowing that he was this icon at the time. But I slowly started to realize that this human being is amazing, and I wanted to learn more from him. So then I continued my work at Indiana University, where he was teaching, and that was just a transformative experience. And you're surrounded by just so many other great artists and so many great students who were just always just so inspiring and just kind of pushing you to do better. And I learned so much from them. So then after undergraduate, I still thought, well, maybe I want to do this orchestra thing, because I did enjoy performing. And so I was an oboe nanny. This is like, this labels and ages me, but so Elaine Duvas, had a couple of oboe nannies, and so we took care of her children. So it was like if there had been a few people had had this position before me who were oboe players, and they would take care of her children and like during the day or in the evenings when she was performing and teaching. But the pay was amazing because we got to study with Elaine, and it was just incomparable. She's a wonderful teacher, and got to hear, I don't know, like 26 operas that year that I was her nanny. And then go to all the master classes at Juilliard, and so interacting with all the students. So that was felt like a full master's degree in itself. But then I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder to work on master's stuff because the teacher there was really good. He was like, I remember during the audition process, this was with Jim Brody, and he listed all these issues in my playing, and he looked at me and then he said, "How are you going to fix those?" And it was so empowering to have someone really put that in my court, So he was identifying issues, but he was helping me take all the parts that I had sort of accrued from all these different teachers, and he really helped me add those together. And so for that, I was eternally grateful. So then at Colorado, then I worked on my master's and my doctorate. And then there's a great program there. It's called the Graduate Teacher Program. And so they really train graduate students to become professors, which a lot of graduate programs don't really do that. So then you're kind of left trying to figure that out. So that was a great program there. So that's kind of my schooling, I guess.
Can I ask a follow-up about that?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, you can continue.
No, I was also remembering a summer studying with John Delancey. So I've got like all these old school people that I'd studied with. So that was terrifying. But I learned so much too, though. He was wonderful. So yeah.
Okay, so now I have two follow-ups.
Uh-oh.
Um, so I know Jim Brody does Alexander technique. Was that part of your education when you studied with him?
Yes and no. So he didn't make it part of lessons. He really kept
Mm.
that separate. He understood that, I was there for oboe, but he ran a summer workshop. And actually, you should go to the summer workshop.
Yeah,
Anyone should go to
totally.
it. It's really great. It's a summer intensive. And so I would kind of, as his graduate assistant, I would kind of help him run it. And he would always make sure that I studied with some of the specialists that were there. And then sometimes in lessons, he'd have me like kind of check in on things. He'd like bring awareness to issues, to physical issues in playing, but he really did keep it separate, which was I was actually thankful for that. So I could really focus on oboe. But if I did have questions, he would address them. But it wasn't like a central focus of the teaching there
Mhm.
for oboe.
I'm writing down the summer workshop.
You should go. Yeah,
Excuse me while I take notes for
it's great.
myself.
It's so good. He brings in like usually two or three different specialists, and it's a concentrated time where you can just really focus for yourself with Alexander technique. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so my next follow-up is
Yes.
about these legendary teachers
Yeah.
that you got to study with. What were some unique things about your experiences with them that, obviously they're not around anymore. So,
Right.
what can you
Well,
tell us about being their student?
like with Mark Lifshitz, everything was always about the line and creating and shaping line and working with that. And he was always tying in art or other just great legendary performers into, as examples. Um, but he was not prescriptive. It wasn't like he had a set pedagogy. It wasn't like, I don't think I ever played a scale for him. Like
Hmm.
he didn't care. It was all about, we'd play a lot of Barrett etudes. He never even prescribed what I would play for recitals. That was kind of up for you to decide. And then you would bring in music to him and then he would help you shape it and understand it. And so I felt like I got 4 years of undergraduate plus the 2 years or so in high school when I studied with him of all these ideas that I was just filing away. And in some ways, my technique wasn't ready for it yet because he didn't teach technique. He taught musical thinking. Um,
Hmm. I'm
and
sorry
so,
I'm so
yeah,
interrupty today. I'm so
it's
sorry.
okay. It's okay.
I had a very similar experience studying with Bert Lucarelli,
Yeah.
where it was all high level musical thinking and
Mhm.
just like, no, you can learn scales on your own.
Right. The
Yeah,
problem was I didn't quite my first year or two. And so that
same.
came back to bite me. And I learned from it. And I always can tell my students now, like, look, I'm listening to your skills now because I didn't have that. And I know it's important that you need someone checking in on you because you can tell yourself you know scales, but until you actually have to play them for someone, that's when you really learn those things.
That's
So yeah,
100%.
that was humbling.
Can we hear about embarking on your professional journey and how you got to where you are today?
Um, let's see. Well, I applied for this position at Eau Claire in my very last semester at Colorado. I was already teaching kind of part-time at Metropolitan State College in Denver. So down in, I'd take the bus from Boulder, do my course prep on the bus, get off, teach, get back on the bus, do all my grading. So I taught some theory there in oboe. And that was great. But it wasn't full-time work by any means. And so I applied for this position my very last semester that I was in Colorado, and I had no idea what I was going to do if this didn't pan out because I had no way of fully supporting myself. I actually remember going to like a job fair at the university, like I brought my resume and I thought I can probably figure out something I can do other than academia if it doesn't work out, or, I'd be taking auditions and whatever. But what would I do if that doesn't pan out? And I remember the only company that even like looked at me because I didn't have like an MBA was Sherwin-Williams for the paint company. And they said that they'd let me move around boxes of paint cans. So I felt really prepared to enter the job market, let me tell you. it was terrifying. So this job opened up in Eau Claire, and I applied for it, and I kind of feel like I won the lottery. I'm not gonna lie, you know. And I had these colleagues who were just very warm and engaging, and it's just so great that I stayed. So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
I I love to ask full professors, people who have been in the
Uh-oh.
game for quite a while. How
Yes.
have you seen the field change over your time in higher ed?
Uh, I've seen so many positions that had been full-time are now relegated to just adjunct, or so they'll have like what's called a teaching professor, which is they'll get great people to be teaching, but it's part-time work. And again, that's not saying anything about the person teaching, but it changes the field because of the expectations of the job. As a full-time professor, I'm expected to be doing scholarly work and like and so furthering the field some way. Whether it's working with new additions for repertoire, writing articles, thinking through like all sorts of things. And someone who is adjunct or not on a tenured sort of work, their expectations are different, and it's more based on performing, um, which that is in most people are knitting together sort of performing work, but it's not the same. It's a different direction for the field. So that saddens me, I think, in terms of being able to further the scholarly work that we do, and as that is something that's important to me.
I think we're seeing that nationwide.
Yeah, yeah, that's been happening, yeah, everywhere. It's
Mhm.
it's not like there's more positions opening in universities saying, "Hey, I think I want to hire a full-time oboe professor." Like it just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And but even my job is 20% oboe. So,
Mm.
it's mostly not oboe on a given day. So, yeah. Except my mind. That's where my mind is the whole time, right? So, shh, don't tell my rock class that.
Along those lines of
Uh-oh.
positions being, you know, more competitive, more rare, you have served on search committees in terms of
Yes.
finding and hiring. And so, for
Right.
our listeners who are still in the application process, or trying to move up and be competitive for those full-time tenure track positions that are fewer now, what
Right.
advice do you have for as someone who has searched and hired faculty positions? What makes an applicant stand out to you, paper round, phone round, on campus?
Right. That's a really great question. Yeah, I've been on a lot of search committees. I've sifted through, I think, easily hundreds of applications. I think the one thing, especially for current students who are about to graduate and who are applying, to recognize that it's not where they go to school. Okay. It's because the teacher gives them the tools. The teacher doesn't give them the kingdom or the castle. That a student gets a degree and then uses those tools to build something. And so sometimes they'll see applications that'll say like, well, I graduated and studied with X teacher, and they think that that should be enough. But it's the idea when I'm looking at an application is what is someone going to do with those skills that they have? How are they going to be working with our students and building something in terms of the field? Does that make sense? Um,
Mhm.
and then being versatile. You can't just, in our case, just teach oboe and have full-time teaching work. You're going to have to teach something else likely, unless you're at just one of just a handful of institutions where you can only have to do oboe. Usually there's at least chamber music added in, or other sort of expectations of classes. So be versatile. Show that you're doing something that is innovative and new. And we want to see people who we want to have to be great colleagues, you know, because ultimately, when you're looking at applications, these are going to be people you're going to be working with very intimately and working on a lot of chamber music and, developing courses with and sharing students with. And so kind of looking at that. I think a third thing would be it's know the students where you're going to be. It's not about in an interview showing how much you know. It's what can you give the student? And I think that's very different because sometimes we'll have, or like a guest lecturer could come in, like be super smart, but not know who they're speaking to. So it can either go totally above the head of a student, and then they're not able to really truly use what gifts that the person has. So, yeah, use your tools, build something innovative, think about how you would be a good colleague, and then make sure that like what are you going to give to the students at any given institution. And that changes and that's different a little bit everywhere, I think,
Mhm.
So.
Sort of along those lines of, teaching and pedagogy and making sure that you're reaching students. Can you tell us about some of your pedagogical projects? I'm thinking Oboe for Everyone and, some of these other like really cool, innovative projects that you've taken on in order to increase accessibility to oboe
Sure.
pedagogy.
Yeah, Oboe for Everyone came about when I was on sabbatical. I don't even remember what I said my sabbatical was going to be at that time, really. But I was drinking way too much coffee one morning, and I was like, man, wouldn't it just be cool if like anyone had access to like teaching, and it wasn't like just limited to who could pay for it. And so we started kind of first just creating a network of teachers who were willing to teach students at reduced rates, and then that kind of people kind of contacted me kind of wanting like to do like a Priceline sort of thing. Like they just wanted the cheapest teacher possible. And I thought, well, this isn't fair to the instructors who were willing to give themselves and to be, or so generous. I don't know any teacher who doesn't want to help a student, if they can find that time. So then I started kind of looking a little more inward and I wanted my students to be able to teach, especially young players well. So I kind of started to transform that program, Oboe for Everyone, into some student and faculty sort of collaborative projects. It's a big thing at our university where I have some short videos that are oboe sort of pedagogy ones, like to help a student like learn what an embouchure is, how to articulate on the oboe, like all these basic things that if you don't have access to a teacher, you're never going to know, and it's going to really not help you start. You're going to have to figure it out, backwards somehow, like usually 5 years later when you finally have an oboe specialist or something. So I started just putting short videos up and then having my students then also creating some videos, and they have ones like putting an oboe together, swabbing it, all sorts of just kind of basic information. And then the hope is that it can be useful. Well, it was useful to my students because they had to learn how to describe something very clearly and simply. And then they can use that with their students. But then also, a lot of people who use those videos are either people coming to the oboe without a teacher, or like, say, like band directors who are starting oboists and have no idea what to do because their oboe techniques class they took as a music education student was like way long ago and terrifying and whatever. So I just tell even our music education students, like, use these videos. These are there. Use them to review for yourself. Use them for your beginning oboe students. So I just want things to be available. Yeah, the internet's great, except there's just so much, right? So like, where do you go, right? Where do you go for your information? So hopefully Oboe for Everyone is a useful site. That's all. Yeah.
Keeping with this idea of accessibility, could you talk to us about some of the projects that you've done performing in non-traditional locations?
Oh yeah. So we started a few years ago, the Notorious Ensemble, and it's just mainly like colleagues. The prerequisite was you'd be asked a question, "Hey, do you want to play a concert with us?" And if they said yes, they were pretty much in. And then we would include some students, and so we've performed in like Like there's a couple of stores like in town that just like would host music concerts, or we did a show. Gosh, where did we go? Oh, we've done stuff at like the Girls and Boys Club. We've done, I don't know, all sorts of places. We did a right before COVID. My last concert before COVID was we did some stuff with some aerialists, like movement artists, with them. So we tried to just come up with like unusual things in unusual places. I don't know. So it was kind of like whatever we came up with. At first, we just made a promise that we wouldn't perform on campus. It was everything outside of that. So, I'm trying to think. I don't know. It all sounds mundane now. At the time, it was kind of, I don't know. You just kind of normalizes. You find yourself somewhere. You're like, I'm playing a concert here. Um,
Well, I think also as academics, we get sort of stuck on campus.
yeah,
So, I mean, it might sound, I don't think it sounds mundane, like
yeah,
we our projects don't often get out into the community.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
by saying that we wouldn't perform on campus, it was kind of like taking a statement that like, taking a stand that we got to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you sustain your physical and mental health over the course of your career?
Oh, I really make questionable life decisions there, Galit. I've um I've gotten into ultra marathon running. Um
Whoa.
yeah, so that's a questionable life choice, isn't it? It's just a way of like being outside for really long periods of time in nature. So
Yeah,
that's
how
what I
ultra
do.
is ultra
Like 50 miles or so.
at one time?
But it was in Moab. Wouldn't you spend 50
Moab is
miles in
beautiful.
See?
I personally wouldn't, but I'm happy for you.
I don't know. It's also a community of other people who do this too. So it's kind of like the people I run with, it's just therapy. And we just say, whatever's said on the trails stays on the trails, and we just have a great time running together. And there are people who have very different backgrounds from mine. Luckily, most of them are in the medical profession. So if I would ever need medical help, they're there for me. I'll be useless to them, but yeah,
How does that affect your oboe playing? Does it
I
make
don't
you
know.
have endurance that is untouched, just like unmatched endurance?
Galit, I don't run with my face. I don't think so. I mean, I think I can I think actually what it does is it helps me focus for really long periods of time, and it makes you realize like you're not done till it's over, and you
Mm.
just got to keep going. Like that is what it does for me. It teaches me you just keep going. And you know yeah, one time I found, well, this run in Moab was the last really long one I did. And before, like 3 days before we were flying out there, they send this email saying, make sure you're well prepared for this, because if you need medical attention, we'll have to airlift you, like have like a helicopter come out. And so like that put things in perspective, that like, oh man, what am I doing? Um, but you just find yourself, with really far out, and then you got to get yourself back. But you've got it in you. So
Mhm.
that's all. Yeah.
Can we
I don't know.
hear a bit? You had said, mentioned that oboe is only 20% of your job,
Hmm.
but we have obviously reed making is like a unspoken, what is it? There's a term for it that often comes with like stay-at-home moms, like undocumented labor, or it has to get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of it. And so can you talk to us a bit about your reed making habits, tips, tricks? Our listeners love to hear about like gear and your setup and that type of thing. But also, when we're balancing so many things, how do your reed making habits fit into a multifaceted life and responsibilities?
Mhm. Um, I don't think about it too much. It's just one of those like I got to get it done. And oh, one of the things that Elaine Duvas taught me, I'll never forget this. She says, learn how to make reads quickly, so you don't ruin the rest of your life.
Mm.
So she was a real proponent of the 5-minute read. And I can't tell you how useful that is to like you type a read and you just scrape it until it mostly plays. And then I let it, sit for a while if I have the luxury. But every once in a while, you'll have a student come in saying like, oh my God, none of my reads work, but I have this blank. So I'm like, give it to me. Let me see what I can do with it. So I try to make reads quickly. I really do. And I don't talk about reads to other people. I'm kind of weird like that. Like my husband never knows if my reads are good or bad. Like, why would he care? Right. So, um, that sounds terrible. I don't mean to brush it off, but it's just one of those like you just do it and you type a read, you scrape it. If it's not working, you move on to another one. And then, something will always be good enough because quite frankly, if it responds and it's stable, no one else around you is going to know. It's not going to sound bad to them, right?
It's
So we
just a
kind of
comfort level for you.
Right. It's all
Hmm.
about me feeling comfortable, but we have to get over like what other people think about our reads because instead I'd rather play it in a way that I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you what to think about it, right? And I think that's just kind of, I try to change the narrative that I just need to read to work and then I don't know, I don't make a big deal of it. Also, like my undergraduate teacher, Mark Lifshey, never taught read making at all. I had no help in undergraduate with read making. I just had other graduate students who was like, I learned a lot from them. But so yeah, so I think I was kind of trained to not really think too much about them. Does
Hmm.
that's a non-answer, and I don't mean it to be.
No,
Um,
it's great. Could we hear a bit about like what shape and staples and stuff you use? And I assume then that that's pretty consistent to
yeah,
allow you to kind of keep coming
yeah.
back to this familiar place.
Yeah. Consistency is everything so that, you know what to expect or what should be happening. So then if it doesn't, you can call it an anomaly and go on. I play on Amerigo oboe, and for me, the Sierra reeds I play on 46 millimeter staples. I like the Mac Plus shape. Um, yeah, I don't know where good cane comes from. If you got any, give it to me. But I've kept those sort of consistencies in terms of the shape and the staples for probably the last, I don't know, 15 years easily now. And so I don't experiment a lot with that, just because it pretty much works.
I'm trying out 46 millimeter staples for the first time this weekend.
That was a Peter Cooper thing. So I studied with him a little bit when I was in Colorado as well. And yeah, his philosophy was that at least from what I understood of it was that, it's the reed itself is still 70 millimeters long, but more of the vibrating or, it's the cane.
Hmm.
There's just more cane that's vibrating. I don't know. It works for me. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it'll make me a little bit less flat at altitude.
oh, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 45 millimeter staples,
Hmm.
so like just keep experimenting until you find what works for you. And then when it
Hmm.
does, stick with it.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah. I think sometimes we're just taught maybe because I wasn't really taught you must do it this one way. Um, I'm kind of open to just figuring it out until it works and then I go with it, even though no one told me it would be a good idea. Maybe at the end of the day it's not, but I'm doing it anyway. I don't know.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Can I ask you if you have any favorite hidden gems in the repertoire that you love to teach or that you love to play that everybody should know about, but nobody does?
Oh man, like hidden gems. Do you know any of the music? Well, I kind of go through like these phases of like finding like new like veins. It's like I'm a gold digger, like. So
Hmm.
when I find a vein, I just seek it out. Do you know the music of Hans Gall? Um,
Yes,
oh, I love it.
that sonata is amazing.
Well, so I've been impressed with there's two trios that I've been playing. I'm really into
Mm.
trios right now. I don't know why. I think it's because you get piano and you get two other voices, like the oboe and another voice, and there's just so much more color than just oboe and piano. So there's a trio with this is wild. It's violin, viola, and oh no wait. Yeah, violin, viola, and oboe. And it's
Hmm.
beautiful. And then there's another trio, I think it was violin cello piano, but the violin could also be played on oboe. And so that's a beautiful one. So
Fabulous.
I love
That's
that.
good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Hans Gall's music.
Yeah.
That I agree. That is one that composer should be more performed.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like Grenville. I like her music. I played her
Hmm.
concerto. I'm playing it. It's another trio. It's a with for oboe and cello and piano coming up in a month or two. I should get on that. Anyway, it's a beautiful sound world that she creates, and I like that. So, yeah, those might
Mhm.
be some hidden gems. I don't know.
I think so.
There's another one, a cool one for a concerto. And this is great for students who are doing like concerto competitions. Stacy Burke, and she teaches at UW Stevens Point, wrote this piece called Flight.
Hmm.
And there's some virtuosic elements in it. There's absolutely just beautiful, like a beautiful, like floating slow movement, but it has an accompaniment for either orchestra or band. So for students doing like concerto
Oh.
competitions, it's a great
Mhm.
one.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, it's good. It's good. I had a student win a concerto competition last year, and she sounded beautiful. And it was with a band, and they sounded great. Like it's just a winner. It's a winner of a piece because an oboist wrote it and understands the idea of balance too. You know,
I
so
love that.
yeah. So go for it. It's a winner.
Hmm.
Speaking of students, as a teacher, what would you say if you had to like summarize your approach or the things that are important to you? Um, talk to us a bit about what are your pedagogical priorities as a oboe
Mhm.
teacher?
I think the biggest thing is understanding the basics, the foundation of playing, because that is, to me, what advanced playing is. Advanced artistry is being able to harness all of those basic foundational ideas in limitless creative ways. So I try to help students understand what they need to be doing, what those basics are, but then also taking that idea of, okay, you've got this limitless creative mind. Now, how are you going to take these two together? Because then if you have the skills and the creativity, then you have a lifetime of really great work ahead of you because it will just keep developing. So I think in a nutshell, it would be those two things, the foundation, and then working on that idea of that creative idea, that imagination, and then putting those two together.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my favorite questions.
Uh-oh.
Um, we have all had moments where something happens on stage that shouldn't have happened. And I was wondering if you would share with us any embarrassing memories of something that has happened to you on stage or in a concert. Anything out of the ordinary that will make us all feel better about ourselves through Schadenfreude.
Or just a funny
Oh, okay.
story. Sometimes it's not embarrassing, but they're like funny stuff. Like, yeah.
Okay, so I've got one that's cringeworthy. I had won this concerto opportunity when I was in high school, and it was totally, totally like awesome. And I got to play the Haydn Oboe Concerto several times on this group that went on tour. And then we had our big concert, which is in my hometown. Like, grandma comes, my parents are there, everyone's gonna hear it. And my oboe, while performing, cracked through three tone holes. And you can actually feel it. It makes a little when it happened. So by the time I was done, I had a crack that went through my entire top joint. So I'll just say low C's don't really respond very well when you've got a crack like that. And it was just one of those like, and like I didn't quite understand why at the time the low C's weren't speak. And there's a lot of low C's in that Haydn oboe concerto in C major. And so that taught me that, yeah, okay, this can happen. But okay, so a funny one. This is another school day experience. It was in Boulder, it was in Colorado, and we were in a pit orchestra playing for Oklahoma. And um, we were just goofing off, and the wind players, we were just absolutely misbehaving, and we kind of knew it. And we were playing along, and it was during a rehearsal. It was not a concert. And it was one of the scenes where there's some dancers. And so we're just kind of goofing off and like doing a little bit of like choreography because we were in the pit and no one could see us. And all of a sudden, there's this point that goes into twice as slow. And it's when the dancers have these high kicks in the show or something. This was the choreography that was happening. Well, we were goofing off so bad that we kind of missed that going into halftime. And so the dancers start doing their high kicks, except they're doing them twice as fast now because we like we're playing, yeah. And so all of a sudden we start hearing these flopping sounds, and it was the dancers were falling over. And then, of course, the conductor stops, and he's just withholding like all of these, these words that he just like he was so mad at us. And if we knew we shouldn't have done that, but and then we were just then trying not to laugh because I mean, come on, it was embarrassing and sorry, dancers. But looking
They are
at the
truly
time,
at
though,
our mercy.
it was very funny. So yeah, so we learned to behave a little better next time. But yeah, so it was just a few of us who were, particularly like if you got the trombones behind you, supporting that, it's gonna be louder than the others. Yeah. So that was kind of funny. So yeah.
Our twin sister question to that is, could you tell us about concert or performances that were especially meaningful or impactful or formative to you?
Trying to think. I mean, to me, like, there's a few times when like I find myself like playing like Beethoven 9, right? And you're in the middle of the last movement and the chorus just opens up and you feel like you're getting a new part in your hair because they're so loud. And you just feel like you're part of this collective humanity that's just, unstoppable, this force. That's really, really fun. I love that. Things like that. Or just, I think more than anything, it's just like those connections when you're playing. I really like chamber music. That's one of my favorite things. And you just feel like, you're playing with these people that you really enjoy playing with. So to me, it kind of doesn't matter what I'm playing. It's more who I'm playing with,
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have a great time doing whatever. So that's what I like. Either the really big or the really small. I don't know. Yeah.
So this next question is pretty special because it is the last time we will ask what your advice is for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours.
Celebrate your progress. Celebrate the progress as it comes. I think we can get so caught up in always looking for that next big thing that if you can celebrate while you're in the middle of it, you're going to enjoy it much more. But also to young people, don't judge yourself by the social media that you see. I'm so happy I didn't have that as a student.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, I would have loved all the recordings. I think I would have just geeked out. I don't think I ever would have seen the, light of day because I just would have been listening all the time. But that constant sort of having something that you can judge yourself to would be, I think, really, really paralyzing. So I'm happy I didn't have that.
Christa, thank you so much for joining us on this very last episode of Double Reed Dish.
Oh, I am gonna miss Double Reed Dish. Do you think you're ever gonna come back for like some I don't know, something, a part 2, I don't know, a live something?
I feel like we could probably surprise drop something in the feed every once in a while,
Yeah, I don't rule it out, but I would also love to see, this was a project 8 years, like we are at very different places in our careers and it was
right.
Its function was very different. And so I would love to see it be picked up in a different form, maybe not podcast, maybe it's TikToks, or maybe TikToks are old by now because I know what a TikTok is, but I would really love to see, the up and coming generation of double reed players think about, we came up with this idea because podcasts were a relevant type of media that we consumed, and we wanted to see ourselves represented in it. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with Galit. I don't rule out dropping something every now and then or a live show or whatnot, but I really want to see what the next Double Read Dish is.
Oh, come on. The Rolling Stones are still out there every once in a while. I believe in the two of you.
Maybe we'll be more like the Beatles and
You're going to just let it be, right?
exactly.
How about a rooftop concert? Can we get a rooftop concert from you
I
or
was
something?
thinking more John Lennon's like sit in when he just sat in bed and called it art. Well, we hope you enjoyed that final episode of Double Read Dish. Whew.
Are you getting sad? I'm getting a little sad.
It's hitting me now.
Yeah.
It's hitting me now.
Me too.
Thank you so much for the past 8 wonderful years.
Up.
It has been so amazing to build this community with you guys, to accomplish everything that we've accomplished together as a group, to have these conversations, to learn together. And we just hope you will stay in touch and keep us as a part of your lives, because we have so loved getting to know all of you in this way and having you get to know us. Galit, take over. I'm babbling.
I can't. She's got me crying over here. We love you and we appreciate you. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being on this journey for the last 8 years with us. And yeah, for the last time, Jackie, it's time to end this nerd parade.
Go make reads.
Oh, girl.
Did it.
We did it.